How do I have this feeling and what am I here to do?
Mm-hmm.
So, as romantic as that all sounds, it's also somewhat traumatizing because it really has you questioning a lot of your life, what you've done before and what you're looking to do in the future. And there's a lot of question marks that come up with that.
Mm-hmm.
And, as I've stepped into that, I've realized that, there's more and more people that are awakening.
Hello, my friend. Welcome to Bold Conscious Connections. So this channel is dedicated to exploring the journeys of visionary leaders, entrepreneurs, who really dare to follow their dreams, their passions, and create really impactful businesses. So if you're looking to become an entrepreneur or otherwise seeking inspiration to elevate your career, well, you're in the right place, my friend. So on this channel, what I do is we delve into strategies, mindsets, stories behind the success of those that have done this before, like I have. I am so happy today to welcome Ryan Bucci, former client of ours, an amazing man, and I'm going to put all the show notes about who Ryan is, but I'm going to do a quick summary before we dive into our questions, Ryan. Ryan is, has gone from being a pro athlete to a transformational coach today and a tour host in Sicily. So after 15 years of competing at the highest levels of professional basketball, Ryan mastered the art of performing under pressure. I mean, he played basketball for the Italian team, I think, right? You're going to talk more about that. But through his yogic initiations, meditation, breathwork, he developed a deeper awareness and one that's kept him sharp, focused, and always ready to perform at a high level. I know that personally firsthand, Ryan. So welcome to the show.
Raju, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here, and I'm glad to catch up with you.
Well, it's delighted. So, Ryan, one of the first questions I ask most people is really, accomplishments and being in the world and the outside world. And I know you're very, very, you do a lot of work on the inner consciousness. So besides all the physical and external achievements, who is Ryan Bucci?
That's a great question that was probably a pivotal moment in my life. Who am I, right? That's a question that I think we all have to answer at some point in our lives, or at least face. And that's a question. The answer I have to that is that I don't know exactly, right? That's something that I'm comfortable with, and that allows me to continue exploring within and without myself. And I like to leave that open without any, definitions or limitations, right? We could be unlimited.
Well, that's awesome. I mean, we are unlimited. It's just that we're always discovering about who we are, is what you're saying, correct?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I would love to, continue on what you were just saying about me, in the sense that I'll give you a few, definitions of who I am, but the real answer is I don't know, and I'm comfortable with that, and that's what allows me to continue to grow and explore. But to say who I am is, I'm a 44-year-old man, and I've lived in 2 continents for most of my life. I split time between Italy and the United States. I've played a lot of basketball. To this day, I'm still coaching it.
Yes.
I'm a father to 2 amazing children, and I'm full of enthusiasm as far as what opportunities life can bring. And I'm willing to put myself in uncomfortable situations to grow and, take me to new places. So I'm ready. I'm here for the adventure. Let's go. This is life.
You speak my lingo there. Right. That's awesome. Anyway, so I know you spent 15 years mastering physical performance. Playing at that level obviously takes a lot of effort and mastery, if you will. So how did that first sort of crack in your athletic identity appear, if there was such a thing?
Yeah, so my father was a professional basketball player in Italy, and seeing him perform at a young age inspired me. And being there, witnessing him playing, and then following the game with my own passion, utilizing my visualization at a younger age when I wasn't necessarily conscious of what I was doing, allowed me to follow in his footsteps and create and carve my own path in that lane. And that pretty much was the catalyst to me becoming a pro basketball player, seeing my father do it, and then taking my own steps within it, and then finding my own passion with the sport.
And then how did this inner work kind of crack appear in that? Your identity was as an athlete, then something happened. So what is that turning point that caused you to go inward?
Yeah, so it's an important moment in my life, and I'm sure with all of us, we get to a point. Some of us earlier, some of us later. Hopefully, all of us at some point before our deathbed. Not to get like all serious about it, but we come to a point. I came to a point where the external pleasures and satisfactions weren't enough for me, and when I really, really crystallized that feeling and that understanding was when I won my first basketball championship in Italy.
Oh.
And that was the first step alongside the birth of my daughter 2 months later
Mm.
that really had me consider what is important in this life and what is it that we're doing here. I heard all this talk about, getting to the top of the mountain, winning the championship is what fulfills an athlete's career. And as I accomplished that, I kind of had a numb feeling within myself.
Mm.
And that was the first step to having me realize that the journey is as fulfilling, if not as powerful as reaching your goal.
Mm.
That had me realize that living in a moment and appreciating every step of the way is where our attention should be, not just on a goal in the future. And then when my daughter was born, I had some magical feeling over me for 3 days, a natural high that I never experienced before, that ultimately had me question life and ask myself, what is this feeling and how do I get more of it?
Mm. Well, as I said, I've seen this in person, Ryan. Some part of your journey, of course,
Yeah.
for those 3 to 6 months that we were together.
Yes.
So it's funny how many people, women in particular, but here you are a man, when their first child is born, something really changes dramatically in their lives, right? So I think you're describing that story where that moment where something happens that we are beyond, just the destination.
Yeah, exactly, Raju. I think, I would like to think that a different event or a different type of catalyst can promote that feeling within all of us. Mine just happened to be the birth of my first daughter and the championship, a couple months before it. It almost looked like there was like a certain divine path laid out that allowed me to step into this question of who am I? How do I have this feeling? And what am I here to do?
Mm-hmm.
So, as romantic as that all sounds, it's also somewhat traumatizing because it really has you questioning a lot of your life, what you've done before and what you're looking to do in the future. And there's a lot of question marks that come up with that.
Mm-hmm.
And, as I've stepped into that, I've realized that, there's more and more people that are awakening to this. So one of the things I do now is I also assist and support people who are going through these type of moments that kind of feel lost
Sure.
and want to know more about a deeper meaning of life.
So, athletes, and one of my youngest son is actually an athlete at D1 level. I mean, athletes often talk about the void after leaving professional sports. I mean, he's not there yet, but at some point. So I know that you're describing the story of that it was organic for you, or somehow that we hope that, we all have that recognition of the meaning that somebody put in us to say, okay, existential issues, or what am I here for? Even though I achieved this, then achieved that, and then what? So drawing a parallel to maybe not just athletes, but corporate executives who potentially are listening to us here. They climb the ladder because then you achieve that, you work whatever you do to get that so-called excellence or the award or the reward or the promotion. What's it all about? I know that everybody has their individual journey. What should they be paying attention to in that climb?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's something that really came spot on for me, especially like I said, after winning that championship.
Yeah.
But even achieving any goal,
Yeah.
a lot of times we achieve the goal and then feel that void, feel that, what's next kind of step.
Yes.
And what that experience specifically has indicated to me is that the attention that we must focus on, what we must pay the attention is to the moment, right? Is really about, that's all there is, right?
Yep.
So if we're climbing a ladder to our goal, every step that we take, every level that we reach out with our arm to grab, feel it totally, be with it totally, whether it's, something that we're writing, whether it's something that we're trying to figure out, whether it's somebody that we're collaborating with, what we put out, we give back. So, the goal that we end up reaching, the more we pay attention in the moment, the more we are sharing, the more we're giving of ourselves, the more fulfilling not only will that journey be, but the better the goal will feel when we arrive to that. So for me, it's about, yeah, I mean, goals are important, but we got to remember too, sometimes we may set goals that might be smaller than what we're capable of. So I like to leave a big question mark ahead and really focus on the journey. And I feel like that's all we have. So that's where my attention goes.
Well, that's fascinating because, every saint out there, everybody in the past, books have been written about this. The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle, and, the list goes on and on. Sadhguru, you and I talk about Sadhguru a lot. I mean, it's just insane how many people have heard about being in the moment, the power of now, because that's all there is. Your present is your gift. And so why do we allow the past to interfere with our present? And then if we allow that, then you're proliferating the past. So is there some magic bullet that you've discovered, Ryan, other than being present for the moment, but it's hard to practice, right? That says, here is a little key to begin that process at least.
Yeah, and I think it begins with the breath, and it's a constant reminder. This is a constant practice, just as much as anything is. There's times that my past may try to come back and haunt me.
Mm-hmm.
There are times that future uncertainties and anxieties may try to creep in and get the best of me. And, I've been practicing mindfulness, yoga, and different breathwork practices, but that doesn't mean that we're immune to that. The thing that we can recognize and build evidence for ourselves through this practice is that when we feel these, past situations or the future situations really taking us out of the moment, that's when we can take a deep breath and then recognize that that's happening. Because I remember in my past, when I would suffer from a sort of a depression or an anxious state, I wasn't even aware of that. I didn't even know how to label that or identify that. And then if we don't have that recognition, we're going to suffer the consequences, right? There are laws of cause and effect, right?
For sure.
So my advice is that the first thing we need to do is recognize when something from the past comes to haunt us or an anxiety from the future comes in too. And the best way to do that is simply meditation, closing our eyes and really focusing on what our mind is going through. Once we're able to recognize that, then we're able to recognize that in our waking state with eyes open as well. So I think a certain form of meditation is crucial to identify our patterns of mind, which we are also responsible for, but society in general is also responsible for, because everybody's trying to tell us about, the past and the future and what, all this anxiety. And really, I love, there's this one meme I love. It's like, it shows you the picture of the galaxy and has an arrow to like a random dot. And it's like, you are here, working 80 hours a week and paying taxes. Is like, there's so much more, there's so much more.
I get this refrain all the time, Ryan, in these jobs. I got bills to pay. I got, my kids to go to the best school in the world. On and on the list goes, right? All the things that they need to do. And, you think that entrepreneurship is easy. I could just go do this thing. I mean, you did not work in corporate, but, you did basketball. Many of my listeners and I were in corporate life for 20, 30 years. So, it's hard to give up that paycheck when you're trying to, let's call it, express yourself and your gifts in the world. So that's the difficulty. And they all, when we talk about meditation, yoga, oh yeah, that woo-woo stuff. Come on, I got to keep going. What's the way to take action? Because everybody's so externally driven to take some kind of action. Do you have any comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, I have 2 kids, I have responsibilities, I have bills, and it's part of everybody's life, whether you're working in corporate or you're an entrepreneur, whatever that is. One thing I always remind myself is we are consciously choosing to participate in society, right? So with that comes a certain responsibility. But let's remember that if we are going to fulfill those responsibilities, I always remind myself am I going to do it in a joyful way, or am I going to suffer that?
Right.
And if we choose to do so in a joyful way, not only will we enjoy our passage through this experience, but there's probably a higher percentage probability that we're going to do an even better job and exceed what it is that we're trying to get on the external. So it's really about fine-tuning our chemistry internally to be in a joyful state. And that will make anything that we're involved in better, whether it's corporate, whether it's entrepreneurship, or whether it's nothing, So
Yeah.
That's how I try to focus on that. Every time I know I'm in a joyful state, only positive things are going to happen.
Yeah. Well, it's easier as I said, easier said than done, as they all say, but it's the truth. It is no better truth, I think, than what you just said, Ryan. That's really, really, there is no other mystery in life. That is it. Just being with your breath if you have anxiety coming or something like that, right? But if you're in that state where you have the choice to, suffering is a choice, right? We all I think we've heard that, but it's the truth, right? Suffering is a choice. Pain, physical pain is one thing, but the suffering of that pain is also a choice. You can let the pain be what the pain does, be an indicator to help you with your imbalance in your body, what have you. But you suffering that is your choice. So I think that's really, really fascinating.
Yeah, Raju, as you're saying that, what comes to mind to me. So I speak fluent Italian too. I'm bilingual, but I also consider myself bicultural as far as like my
Yes.
experience with Italy.
Mhm.
And, I really found it interesting how different languages express different type of things.
Yes.
And as you're saying that, I remember in Italy, if they say, if I have some sort of ailment, I don't know what it could be, a migraine, right? Let's just say
Yeah.
I have, in English, we would say, I have a migraine.
Right.
In Italian, they would say, soffro di emocrania, which means I am suffering from a migraine.
I see.
Anything they say, they first say I'm suffering from something. And before I really, wrap my mind around these type of discourse that we're sharing right now, I always just, kind of brush it off and that's how they say it. But something about it always stayed with me, meaning like, isn't necessarily meaning you're suffering from it. Like
That's
it's
right.
an automatic jump into suffering from.
Yes.
But like you said, we do have a choice. Sometimes it's hard to hear because that means that we need to really take self-responsibility for how we feel about that.
For sure. I'm going to change gears in a bit about, coming to Sicily and New York and just want to get your take on that. But I'm still fascinated by how you, Ryan, naturally began attracting others curious about your journey, because you talked about that and we discussed that. What were people seeing in you that you weren't yet fully recognizing in yourself? Do you have an idea?
Yeah, I think it was just a different wave or shift of how the masses behaved. Certain moments in my life where I wanted to just start expressing myself without being fear of judged, whether that's a thought that I had that could be something that people are, timid about sharing or disclosing with others. And I think that was a pivotal moment because it ended up becoming powerful for me inside to not worry about other people judging me. But of course, we have to go through not judging ourselves first for it.
Right.
I think when people recognize that I was unwilling to, kneel down to society's demands and kind of stick with and express what it is I really felt and recognized in this world, I think people would recognize that shift in power.
Awesome, man. So, Ryan, Sicily and New York. I mean, I know you say Italy, but Sicily is where you spend time, right? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they represent such different rhythms and values. I'm sure I've been to Italy at all, so let alone Sicily, and it's on my list to take you up on your tour thing. But how has this duality, if there is such a thing, shaped your approach to what high performance truly means?
Yes. I feel very grateful and blessed to be able to have experienced two completely different cultures. Really opened my eyes to, seeing America from the outside, seeing, Italy from the outside or Europe.
You were born here, correct? You're obviously American, right?
Yes, I was born in New York. I lived up until 10 years in Italy, pretty much. I went to elementary school till fifth grade and then came back to the States, went back after college, had my pro career and then my touring business. So I split time. I've probably physically lived more time in Italy, but, my time is pretty much split.
Okay.
And, like you were saying at the, intro of this question, it's a duality. It's very different. New York, northern, more northern part of the hemisphere, cold weather in the winter, colder attitude of people, more of a grind, nonstop type of lifestyle.
Of course.
And then we have, in a specific example, Sicily, the southern part of Italy, more of a warmer climate. The people are a lot more open to receiving new people. That island was the most conquered island in the Mediterranean because of all of its resources. So it's been dominated and ruled by so many different cultures. It's a true melting pot. So New York is a sort of a melting pot. Sicily is also sort of a melting pot. But New York, from my experience, what I've recognized is it's colder not only in weather and nature, but also the people in general, a little bit more closed to each other. And Sicily really taught me what it is to be open, welcoming, more of an open heart, and more of a do more by doing less spirit.
Isn't that prevalent for most of Europe, though, or is that just you're saying? I've seen this in France, well, not France, not Spain, maybe is a good example, or Portugal.
Yeah, I believe Italy, Spain, and Portugal share that vibe a little bit more. And but it changes once, even when you get to northern Italy, it's a little bit different. The Milan area up in Turin and all that, and then also Germany's more of that type of
Yeah.
style. So it's more of the southern part, southwestern part of the Europe that is a little bit more like that.
Mm. Well, that needs to be examined because it seems like in the northern hemisphere, even that's the case. You just kind of look at the southern parts of those places closer to the equator. Maybe there's more relaxation and more joy in their life.
I think so, and
Yeah.
we hear even here in the United States, you talk
Yeah.
about Southern hospitality.
I'm here in the South.
Yeah, I'm
It's
sure
just
you've felt that, right?
very different, very different. Yes. So you mentioned that your tours create genuine off the beaten path adventures in Italy. You conduct tours under Bucci Tours now. I was just curious. I mean, it's your word, genuine off the beaten path
Yeah.
adventures. What's the moment when you watch someone experience that personal breakthrough, perhaps simply by being removed from their familiar environment? Is that what you're referring to? What do you mean?
Yeah, most definitely, Raju. And that's one of the things that is, the purpose of what I do, of giving and allowing people this moment to step out of their, normal grind or what they experience every day into a different habitat, a different nature, a different way of being. It pays me back by witnessing, like you just said, seeing them, witnessing them through their own eyes, recognizing a certain beauty that they'd never seen before. And for me to witness them go through that and have that is a beautiful thing for me. Yeah, it's a fulfilling endeavor for that reason. And this touring business, why is it genuine? Because I've lived there for 8 years, made heart-to-heart connections with people who take part in the experience, whether we're eating at someone's house, or a friend is showing us like a new way to make cheese or pizza, or hiking a mountain, taking a yacht out in the water. We do it with the locals who are my friends, who I have real genuine relationships with. And when our guests come out and they see the relationships I have with the locals, it just ends up melting right away. We're not wasting any time getting to know somebody right away. Everybody's friends. We're focusing on having a good time. And it's magical. This is something that came to my mind after my last basketball season. I was just driving around and I visualized myself driving a few guests around and showing them the beauty that I was witnessing coming from New York that I've never seen before. And you know what? It's not that one place necessarily is more beautiful than other, but Raju, I'm sure you can agree with me. As human beings, novelty is something important in our lives.
For sure. I mean, it comes to mind. I mean, I've done many tours of India because as a child and right through adulthood and even corporate life, I used to have delegations come to India and say, you got to see what's here. It's like, particularly if you're an American or a European, it was incredible. And the joy I get from that was incredible. Now, I didn't run it as a business, so maybe this is the time for you to plug in for your business. I mean, what led you to that? What was one kind of, you touched on it, but what is this business and what is it about this that people should be attracted to?
Well, like I said, I really feel that seeing different things, having novelty experiences is great because it also gives you something to base off of what your reality is right now. I think that changing of pace, witnessing a different culture is very important. I think the world is getting smaller, and I think that's a good thing because we're starting to understand people better from different places, and we're all recognizing that we're all humans and we all want the same thing. We want a good life. We want to be able to have food on our table, enjoy our friends and family, and just be a part of this planet, right? So I am very convinced that traveling is the best education.
Absolutely.
So if somebody wants to educate themselves while they're enjoying and while they're in a safe space by the accompaniment of me and my staff, that's the best education. And, I think it's worthwhile for anybody to experience.
I got goosebumps. I may think about doing this business someday. Someday. So switching gears again a little bit, Ryan, what's the most dangerous and by the way, I have a rapid fire at the end. I hope you have a few more minutes for that.
Sure.
So someone who's lived extreme, physical performance, and then now you're guiding people towards inner mastery and while maybe experiencing, beautiful nature, in Sicily. What's the most dangerous misconception about transformation that you see in today's wellness culture, as they call it now?
Yeah, that it's all, I don't remember exactly how far south you are, but like they say in Georgia, peaches, right? It's not all peaches and cream.
I'm all the way south in Georgia and South Carolina border.
Okay. Okay. So Georgia peaches, peaches and cream. It's not all peaches and cream. There's a lot to go through because we got to unwind a lot of things that we've, added to ourselves unconsciously through our
Sure.
lives. We've been bombarded with propaganda, commercials, opinions, and other people's unconsciousness that, we inherently take in, especially as a developing child up until, I don't know the exact age, maybe it's like 12 or something like that.
Yes,
Our minds are completely open to absorbing and thinking that what it is that we see and receive is the
it's true.
truth.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So there's a lot of unwinding to do, and that can be painful sometimes, but we have to be willing to do the work, take the responsibility if we want to evolve and, carve out our own lane in this life.
Wow, for sure. So Ryan, you're
Yeah.
talking about children. You're raising children between two dramatically different cultures. I don't know if they're with you in Italy or they live here in the U.S. But perhaps my question really is about how has fatherhood challenged or reinforced that personal philosophy that you have developing through your transformation work? I mean, how is that showing up in your kids' lives? And
Yeah. Wow. Fatherhood, it's something that every day is just massive task in a sense. It's like, not to, I don't want to make it sound bad, but it's like, it's the gift and the curse in a certain way, right? And I mean that by, it's the most beautiful thing, but it's also the most challenging thing. Our kids, my kids, and I feel like all kids in general, they will show you things about yourself that either you didn't know or failed or refused to recognize. And it's humbling at the same time and tremendously rewarding also. There's a lot of times that, I have to sever certain conditionings of parenting that I've had through my father. And there's times that I have to channel the things that I feel like were my father's greatest assets
right,
and utilize that too. So it's something that isn't just set in stone. Just like Raju, we've discussed this many times. A relationship isn't something that you package together and leave alone and it's the way it is forever. It's something that we have to nurture every single day. It's a trust that we have to build. It's something that we have to learn from each other. So I feel like my kids, just like anybody's kids, they're mirrors for us to see ourselves in certain ways. There's a lot
so
there.
so true, man. I got
Yeah.
four. I'm telling you, it's just looking back, I learned probably more from them than I did from anything else out there because they are, as you said, they're mirroring back to you truth I don't want to see about myself.
Yeah.
Mostly.
Yeah. I love and I love that you say that, and us as fathers, especially like in our generation, let's say, like we're able to, articulate that and even have our kids hear that
That's
because,
right.
I think that's important for them to know how important they are to us and what level of growth they can offer us.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, I remind my kids all the time, and I have to remind myself too. I'm like, this is the first time I'm a father, like in the sense that like there was no prep book to this. There's nothing
That's
that
right.
you can,
That's right.
so I make mistakes and I do my best to tell them when I recognize that I make a mistake. And
Yes.
when they make a mistake, I tell them too. It's like, I'm not going to judge you. I just want to help you. And
Yeah. And we didn't
please
grow.
show mercy to me.
I know. And we didn't grow up. I didn't grow up like that because it was only one-way traffic. It was just like you just take the stuff and there's nothing to even question or talk back. So
Similar here. Yeah.
yeah. Okay. So when working with athletes who are still in the thick of their careers, right
Yes.
now, what's the hardest truth for them to accept about the relationship between their kind of peak performance and their inner work? Is there something that's happening in the world, you think?
Yeah, one of the reasons why I assist and facilitate different support systems for athletes is because I recognize that when I was, a prime athlete and during my time, if I had someone who could support me with some of the questions, doubts, and different ideas that I had, it would have been beneficial. Because an athlete's career isn't 40, 50 years. This is it could be 2 years, 5, 10, 15 if you really push it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's going to be an after moment.
Right.
It's not going to last forever.
Correct.
But at the same time, there's like two ways of looking at it. Some people think that like, once the athlete's career is over, then, they got to like do whatever. But to me, it's like, think about the high pressure, the performance that these athletes have to go through. If I can assist people transitioning from their career to a different one, it's about empowering them and reminding them of what you're able to do at these high pressure stakes and everything else that comes with it. You can do anything.
Yep.
You're not just a jock. You're not just a dumb athlete. We as athletes, I'm speaking for the community.
Yes.
We're able to perform under such pressure, such high intensity, high scrutiny, newspapers judging you every performance. I mean, public opinion, the forums. I mean,
yes.
You're under a huge microscope. So we're capable of everything. We just need to have some sort of a footprint to guide us. And, one of the things that I went through, through my transition from end of career into now is that there's no map for that. So sometimes it can be difficult for someone who was used to such high adrenaline situations to kind of like settle for something that could be monotonous. So it's about really channeling these athletes' desire for a big stage and then allowing them to create something through what it is they're passionate about, but continuing that high level intensity and performance.
I'm thinking about some of these big, highly paid baseball and basketball players, hundreds of millions of dollars in contracts. And then that's what most of those athletes in that particular sport are looking at as the benchmark, right? And so, as you say, they have a short life, 10, 15 years at the most. And then if they can't ride off into the sunset with millions, then what the hell have they just done, right? So it's a curse in a way, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's going to challenge you because there's no security in that. I mean, of course, if we're talking about the top leagues where people, like you said, are making hundreds of millions, they don't have any monetary concerns when they're finished. But we have heard and seen the stories of people going bankrupt even after making millions. And just because if you retire with millions doesn't necessarily going to be happy, right? We know that money doesn't necessarily mean happiness. We do want to be at a level where we're not worried about our survival to take that next step of working within ourselves. Right. But, for the athlete such as myself who made a decent living, but still has to continue to provide income for my responsibilities, I had to find out what that was moving forward. And for me, it was about creating something that I'm passionate about to, give me that when I wake up in the morning that it's like purposeful, and that's what it is.
So just a couple of questions on purpose, because that's one of my biggest sort of areas of interest here. 7 years into your touring business now and post-athletic career, what aspects of your former identity, Ryan, have been the most difficult to sort of release?
Yeah, I think one of them could be being in a spotlight. As an athlete, as a basketball player, I'm in the center of the court, thousands of people around me. Like I said, news write-ups, interviews on the news, newspapers, back in the day when they had newspapers. Living in the limelight, that high intensity, that high pressure, that recognition of fans on the streets, like that's something that, it doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing, but you get used to a certain type of recognition and limelight that when you step out of that, there's some adapting and getting used to.
Okay. All right. If you could distill everything you've learned from your basketball, your yogic experiences, tour guides, entrepreneurships, fatherhood, into one essential truth about human potential, what would that be?
Okay, Raju, I think that you will recognize this quote, saying, or philosophy or idea, but might not be directly answering what you asked me, but this is what came to mind to me. And I had to remind myself this all the time. Be, do, and then have.
That's right.
So first thing, how are we being? Let's set that the way we want it to be. Once we're being a certain way, then our doing with law of cause and effect will be of a certain nature. And if our doing is of a certain quality, we will have. So it's be, do, and then
do
have.
And have.
Yes.
Yes. Some people have said some different elements of that, but I think that's the essence, right? Is what you're saying. But it's about the human potential. So recognizing that human potential of each individual is limitless, right? So I think That's a good phrase. I think that's great too.
Yeah, I think be do have is fundamental, and I also think that it's very important to be honest with ourselves with everything, and it's okay to admit that we don't know what the hell this life is.
That's right.
You know?
That's how we started. And I think
Yeah.
I don't know are the most powerful words. I mean, if you
Yes.
are, if you're going to say, I know all of it, then my goodness. And I'm guilty of that many times where I just, yeah, I know that. Well, even if you know some part of it, you don't know all of it.
Yes. I mean, listen, I can barely explain what anything is out here. Like what, so it's like I am consciously ignorant.
Mhm.
And I think that that's important, because if once we admit to ourselves that we don't know things, that automatically opens up the possibility to learn.
Mhm.
And Raju, I'm sure you've had this experience too, but when there's a lot of times there's a certain standard of ways that men should act when they should know everything and
That's right.
act like they. But anytime that I've genuinely admitted to somebody that I didn't know about something and I wanted to know and willing to learn, the shift in their vibration to teach me genuinely,
Mhm.
it was a beautiful thing. So I am so comfortable admitting I don't know, and I think that's a foundation for growth.
I think there could be no better way to say that, because that's what I find myself in learning environments all the time. I go, because I don't know all of it. And I don't know. I'll pick up something if I don't, if I have a good, whatever you want to call mastery, it doesn't matter. There will always be something that I will pick up that I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we think that we know everything, we're going to cut off all our possibilities to grow and expand and
Yes.
evolve.
I think that also ties into the question I asked about the one essential truth about human potential, right? Because if you begin with I don't know and just be for a second, and then do and have, then you have the potential for it to make some progress in life. Beautiful.
Yeah, for sure. Like a lot of the New York way of being is just grind it out, do, 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 do. We talked
Right.
about this, right? So it's like that's part of it, but like how are we doing it?
Right.
That causes the next step, and it's
That's right.
important. Do it joyfully if we can.
Yep.
And then how do we do it joyfully? There's methods for that. We can learn
Right.
that.
That's right. Okay, so I'm going to get into rapid fire. It may cover things we didn't talk about, but if it's repetitive, I will try to skip those. Okay.
Sure.
I hope you're okay with that.
Yeah, is
So,
this where I'm answering one words or full sentences? How's
there
anything?
are, it may be that you might be no, you don't have to do one word, but just what
Okay.
comes to mind. You don't need to give it too much thought. Okay.
Okay.
First question. So most profound silence: meditation room or empty arena after a game?
Ooh, that's ah. I'm gonna go with that empty arena after the game. I felt that when you said that.
I thought so too. Okay. One breathwork technique that has changed everything for you.
I think it's just following my breath all the way through the inhale and exhale, recognizing the temperature of in and out, the cool air in and the warm air out, and just following that through, just following it.
So people listening to this, where should they go? That's just within, right? Not look for an app, Calm or whatever else.
I don't use any apps for
I'm just
meditation.
joking in a way, because
Yeah,
I mean, this is like, people don't realize that they have breath and they have the ability to be conscious and aware that they can breathe, and breathe.
yeah.
Breath is life. Okay.
Until you've inhaled and exhaled, you haven't lived yet.
You haven't lived. You just do it unconsciously at night in your sleep. You don't
Right,
even know it.
right.
Okay. Sicily's greatest hidden treasure that tourists never find.
The ricotta cheese that the shepherds make up in the countryside.
Wow. Can we have some of that here or no?
They can barely get that anywhere else in Italy, because as soon as it transports,
Ah,
it starts losing its freshness. So you got to
ah,
get it there, and that's it.
dang. Oh my God. And so are you still doing your food business or no, in addition to your tourism?
Yeah, I'm still working on that a little bit. That's kind of on the side right now, more of a
Mhm.
side project. But
Okay.
the business of food is eating it in Sicily right now.
Okay. All right. Most challenging yoga position for a basketball player's body.
Um, for me, it's always been just the sitting cross leg position, basic. I need a
Mm.
little bit of a prop up. I've always had a little bit of issues with my hips since I was a child, really. So that was a little bit of a challenge. So for me, the easiest one is this Shavasana, which would be for laying down on your back. I've practiced that so much that I'm able to get into states of non-sleep, but awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And that translates into a phase of me being in waking state to sleeping when I get to bed too. So the Shavasana is the easiest, but the most difficult for me is just sitting cross-legged.
Okay. All right. This may be a little hard. I was just thinking about how to say this, but the Italian phrase that best captures your life philosophy. And you'd have to explain what that is because I don't know Italy. Italian.
The Italian phrase that best captures my life philosophy. Italian phrase. Here we go. Puttitini.
Okay. What does that mean?
Puttitini, which means, I'll give you the cleaner version of it, is don't worry. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
So it has a course something about this, huh? In the language.
Puttitini is something that comes up, and it becomes like one of the things that our guests out in Sicily like to say at some point.
Oh,
it's just like you're out there, you got to email Puttitini. Don't worry about it.
Like screw it kind of thing.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Okay, I guess it's the biggest misconception Americans have about Italian experience.
Biggest misconception. A misconception. See, it's kind of strange for me because I'm in the know, so I'm trying to think of what the misconception could be.
When they get there.
So yeah, maybe that in Sicily everything is just about mafia. Like everybody always is so intrigued by that, and that's just like more of a thing of a past, even though it's still alive today to some extent. But it's not like, a lot of Americans are enamored by it because of the culture of the movies.
That's right.
Of the mafia movies. So like when they come over, like, they're always asking about it and stuff like that. But the misconception is that not everybody's like caring about it or into it. So that's kind of a misconception.
Okay. What ritual you maintain from your basketball days?
Probably exercising almost every day. I think 5 days a week, I would say at least I'm active, whether I'm lifting weights or running. And, I do it because it makes me feel good. That natural high I get during and after is worth the trouble of starting,
Well, that's with most things in life, right? The difficult things in life.
Yeah.
So
for that first step. Yeah.
All right. Finish this sentence, Ryan. The greatest performance enhancement is
love.
Wow, I love that. Beautiful.
Yeah.
All right. What question do you secretly hope I would have asked for today?
What question do I ask for today?
Because I didn't give you any questions. So I just wanted to say, okay, what was it what you thought I might ask, but I didn't?
Maybe what upcoming programs am I hosting for my coaching?
Go ahead. Here's a plug for you.
Here we go. So it may be a little bit late now for anybody to join, but in the future, I'm going to continue hosting. This Sunday, I'm starting a 4-week course on every Sunday morning. It's called March Forward. This is the second year I've done it in a row, and I'm going to continue doing it. And this year, we have a group of about 10 men who, in this container, we are going to be breaking down Don Miguel Ruiz's book, The Four Agreements, which I'm a big proponent of. I've always just fell in love with that book from the first time I read it. And each week, we're going to break down one of the agreements together. And during the week, have a few things to, go over. It's starting this Sunday, so unless somebody, jumps on super fast, I know it might be difficult, but these are things that I do.
I could share in the show notes. Well, I guess maybe hard today, but yeah.
Yeah, there's a link, and if somebody wants to check it out for maybe a future thing, or even
where can they find that? Just so that if they're getting
this,
it's
at RyanBucciCoaching.com.
Ryan Bucci Coaching.
Yeah.
So the one question I did not ask you, I should have asked before, is: are you doing a lot of these programs regularly, or this is just for March?
Yeah, so this is for March now, but I'm going to be doing these probably every couple months or so.
Okay.
And this is as group work. but I do individual work consistently throughout the year with a couple different clients.
Okay, you already mentioned your favorite book, and this may be the last question. Is there another one besides the Four Agreements?
You mentioned The Power of Now from Eckhart Tolle, which I think is great. The Kabbalion.
Oh, of course.
The Kabbalion is
Awesome.
amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the first things that come to mind, and maybe even Inner Engineering book by Sadhguru. There you go.
Of course. Mm-hmm. Awesome. All right, Ryan, in the vein of gratitude, thank you so much for being here. You were a guest, I think, in the past, a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you being back. And in the vein of that gratitude, is there anything you discovered on this call today?
Well, what I discovered is a kind of a rekindling of you and I going back and forth on a conversation, which has been great. It's been probably a little bit long overdue, but as always, it's refreshing, and I love speaking with other people on conscious topics. And I'm just grateful to be here. I'm happy to, like I said, have a great chat with you, and I hope that I guess the intention is that this conversation brings some value to people who are listening and can give them either some enthusiasm or a little bit of a push in something that they're determined to do.
Absolutely. I mean, there's no doubt that, even if nobody's watching or listening to this, somewhere along the line, someone's going to pick up something. And your wisdom is second to none, Ryan. So I appreciate you being here.
I'll humbly say thank you to that. Thank you.
Well, thank you as well. All right. You take care, my friend.
Take care, Raju.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, my friend, for tuning in to another episode of Bold Conscious Connections. If you really enjoyed this episode, give it a thumbs up, please, and subscribe for more inspiring stories and insights from top entrepreneurs and leaders. So that button is right below here. So join our vibrant community of individuals who are out there making a difference. Okay? Stay tuned for more amazing conversation that will inspire and empower you. And until next time, remember, live boldly and consciously, my friend.